The new house. The lock clicked with a stubborn groan, and Claire had to throw her shoulder into the door before it finally swung open. The house gave a sigh, as if resentful of her arrival, the heavy wooden frame shuddering against the push of September air. She stood in the threshold, keys jangling in her trembling hand, staring into the dim hallway that stretched ahead. Dust hung thick in the light slicing through the blinds, glowing like motes suspended in amber. The realtor had called the property quaint, rustic, with a charming history. Claire called it cheap, and more importantly, hers. The first real place she could call her own. Her parents had argued against it. Her friends had teased her for choosing something so far from the city. But Claire liked the quiet, or thought she did. The silence of the countryside was supposed to be soothing, a break from the hum of traffic and the constant intrusion of voices. The house was old, yes, but it had character. The cracked plaster walls wore faint water stains like bruises, and the warped wooden floors complained under each step. In the kitchen, pipes groaned awake when she turned the faucet, and the faint smell of mildew clung to the sink. But Claire didn't mind. She traced her fingers along the doorframe and told herself she was finally starting over. That night, she unpacked the essentials, a mattress in the corner of the upstairs bedroom, a lamp, her laptop, and the single box of books she refused to leave behind. The rest could wait until morning. The bedroom was smaller than she expected, its ceiling sloped with a roof angled down. The single window looked out on a yard gone wild with weeds, and beyond that, a stretch of black forest that seemed to swallow the horizon whole. She set her lamp on the floor, the yellow glow stretching thin across the room, and lay back on the mattress with a sigh of exhaustion. The house was quiet, unnervingly so. No traffic, no neighbors, not even crickets. Just the kind of silence that pressed against your ears until you could hear the thrum of your own pulse. Claire pulled her blanket up and let her eyelids drift shut. That was when she heard it. Knock, knock, knock. She froze. It came from the wall behind her bed, soft, almost apologetic. At first she thought it was her imagination, her nerves inventing sounds to fill the silence. But then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, deliberate. Claire sat up, pressing her ear to the cool plaster. The sound ceased immediately. She waited, breath caught in her throat, but the house remained still. Pipes, she whispered to herself, though the word fell hollow in her mouth. Old houses made noise. Everyone said that. Settling beams, rodents in the walls, plumbing expanding and contracting. She lay back down, turning her face toward the opposite wall. Minutes dragged by. The silence returned. Sleep eventually claimed her. In the morning, sunlight made the house seem less oppressive. Claire brewed instant coffee in the chipped kettle left behind by the previous tenants and laughed at herself with nerves. Of course it had just been the house settling. But when she wandered upstairs again with her mug in hand, she noticed something that sent a ripple of unease through her chest. The wall where the knocking had come from bore faint scratches of the baseboard. Not claw marks exactly, but shallow grooves etched into the wood, as though someone had scraped at it repeatedly over the years. Claire crouched down, tracing the ridges with her fingertip. They weren't fresh, but they unsettled her all the same. "You're overthinking," she muttered. Still, she dragged her mattress away from that section of wall before night fell again. The second night, the knocking returned. Knock, knock, knock. Claire sat bolt upright, heart hammering. This time, the sound came exactly at midnight. She checked the glowing red digits of her clock. 12:03. Again deliberate. 3 knocks. A pause. Then 3 more. Knock, knock, knock. She clutched her blanket, nails digging into the fabric. Her rational mind scrambled for answers. Wind against the siding, branches tapping the exterior, maybe even raccoons in the crawl space. But the sound wasn't outside. It was inside the wall. The hair on her arms lifted, goose flesh crawling over her skin. "Stop it," she whispered, half to herself, half to whatever might be listening. The knock ceased. Claire didn't sleep the rest of the night. By the third evening, she had convinced herself it was mice. Nothing supernatural, nothing sinister, just rodents trapped in the walls of a neglected farmhouse. But when midnight came, the knocks began again. Not scurrying, not random scratching, but measured. 3 knocks. A pause. 3 more. And this time, something new. The rhythm shifted. Knock, 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 knock. Claire's brow furrowed. The pattern wasn't natural. It sounded intentional. Like code. She sat up, clutching her phone flashlight, and pressed her ear to the plaster again. The knocks resumed, slow, deliberate, echoing to the frame of the house as if someone or something was trying to communicate. For the first time, Claire felt the whisper of real fear slide down her spine. She didn't sleep that night either. Instead, she opened her laptop at dawn, her fingers trembling as she typed. Morse code patterns in knocking. Patterns in the dark. By morning, Claire's search history looked like the frantic scribbles of someone unraveling. Morse code translator. Knocking patterns in old houses. What does 3 knocks mean spiritually? Her coffee went cold beside her laptop as she clicked through articles and forums. Paranormal blogs told her 3 knocks meant a mocking of the Holy Trinity, a harbinger of death. Skeptics insisted it was nothing more than creaky plumbing. But her stomach twisted at both answers, because she knew the sound wasn't random. It was too precise. She scribbled notes on a legal pad, writing dashes and dots. When she replayed the memory of the rhythm in her head, the pattern aligned frighteningly well with Morse code. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. Her hand froze over the paper. That night, Claire left her lamp on, sitting cross-legged on the mattress with her pad of paper in her lap. Midnight crept closer. She checked her clock obsessively, each minute dragging like an hour. 12:01, 12:02, 12:03. The first knock came. Her heart slammed against her ribs, but she forced her pen to move. Knock, knock, knock. She wrote 3 dots. Knock, knock, knock. 3 dashes. Knock, knock, knock. 3 dots again. SOS. Clear as daylight. Claire's hand shook. Hello? She whispered, absurdly, to the wall. Silence. Her throat tightened. What do you want? The knocks came again, but slower now. Dots and dashes tumbling into meaning. She followed with her pen, breath shallow. H-E-L-P. Help. Claire dropped the pen, her pulse racing. She clutched her blanket, staring at the wall as though it might split open at any moment. By morning, the words still echoed in her head. Help! 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 She dragged herself downstairs, bleary-eyed, and brewed more bitter coffee. Logic screamed at her to stop, to move out, to call the landlord, to let it go. But the human pull of desperation in that word help gnawed at her. Was it a trick of her imagination? Sleep deprivation? Or was someone somehow inside the walls? She laughed out loud at the thought, the sound brittle in the empty kitchen. Ridiculous. Impossible. And yet she couldn't shake it. The following night, she armed herself with more preparation. Laptop open, pad of paper ready, phone recording in hand. When the clock struck 12:03, the knocks began again. She transcribed feverishly, translating each stutter and pause. H-E-L-P, T-R-A-P-P-D. Her skin crawled. She whispered, where, for a moment, silence. Then the knocks began again. D-O-N-T-D-I-G. Claire frowned. Her pen stilled. Don't dig, she repeated softly. But the message repeated, urgent now, pounding harder, faster. Don't dig. Don't dig. The plaster seemed to tremble with the force. Claire dropped the pen and stumbled back, her phone slipping from her hand onto the mattress. Stop, she screamed. Just stop. And just like that, silence. The house felt heavier the next day, as though the very air resisted her movements. Claire moved through it distractedly, every creak of the floor making her flinch. By afternoon, she decided she needed air. She wandered the overgrown yard, weeds brushing her ankles, and circled toward the back of the house. That was when she noticed something she hadn't before. A small, uneven mound of earth near the foundation, half hidden under weeds and vines. The soil looked disturbed, loose in the ground around it, as though it had been dug up and clumsily refilled. Claire crouched, brushing dirt from the gravestone-sized lump. Her chest tightened. It was exactly beneath the wall where the knocking came. Her fingers tingled. She stumbled backward, heart hammering. The knocks weren't just in the walls. They were coming from underneath. That night, she didn't sleep at all. She sat in the living room with every lamp on, gripping a mug of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Her mind replayed the messages over and over, that strange contradiction. Help. Don't dig. Who was in the walls? Or what? By 3 a.m., her eyes burned with exhaustion, and every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. She thought she saw a movement in the hallway once, a shadow that didn't belong. But when she turned her head, nothing was there. The knocking never came that night, which was somehow even worse. The following evening, as the sun dipped behind the tree lean and the woods swallowed the horizon, Claire found herself at the mound again. Her hand itched to grab a shovel, to dig, despite the warning. Curiosity warred with terror in her chest. What was buried under there? And why didn't it want her to find out? The message. Claire dreamed of dirt. It sifted through her fingers, damp and cold, swallowing her hands up to the wrists. A muffled voice echoed from below, begging, pleading, until it turned into frantic knocking. She woke gasping, the sound still reverberating in her ears. Except this time, it wasn't a dream. The knocks were real. 12:03, right on time. She sat up, trembling, the sheet clutched to her chest. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. The response came immediately, rattling her walls like teeth chattering. She scrambled for her notepad and pen, scribbling furiously. D-O-N-T, Diagi. Her hand shook. Why? The next sequence was slower, halting, as if the knocker struggled to force the words out. B-U-R-I-D, N-O-T, Yoani. Claire froze. Not alone, she repeated. The room seemed to grow colder with the words. The air so heavy her breath came in short bursts. A wave of nausea rolled through her. The warning wasn't just about what was buried. It was about who or what was buried with it. The next morning, she stared at the mound outside, her stomach coiled in knots. The earth looked freshly turned, as though something beneath shifted in its sleep. All day, the thought consumed her. Don't dig. But warnings never worked the way they were meant to. They weren't barricades. They were invitations. By evening, Claire was at the hardware store buying a shovel. The cashier gave her a strange look when she dropped on the counter. Doing some late planting? Claire forced a laugh that sounded too brittle. Something like that. The soil was softer than she expected. Damp, loose, as if someone had disturbed it not long ago. The blade of the shovel cut through it with unnerving ease. Each heave sent her heart pounding harder. Sweat ran down her temple despite the chill in the air. The wood seemed too quiet. No crickets, no rustling leaves, just the sound of her shovel striking the earth. Thunk. The metal hit something solid. Claire froze. Her mouth went dry. She crouched low, scraping the dirt away with her hands until the shape revealed itself. Wood, rotting, splintered. A box. A coffin-sized box. Her pulse screamed in her ears. Oh, God! With trembling fingers, she pried at the edge until the lid gave way with a brittle snap. Inside was not a body. Not exactly. It was fragments. Bones, yes, but scattered, claw marks gouged into the wood, as though something had tried desperately to get out. Among the remains lay scraps of fabric, yellow with age, and a locket snapped in half. Her stomach lurched. She stumbled back, gagging. That was when the knocking started again. Not on the walls this time. In the dirt, all around her. Knock, knock, knock. From beneath the ground. From the woods. From every direction at once. Claire screamed, scrambling to her feet, dropping the shovel. Her eyes darted wildly, searching the shadows between trees, the darkened windows of her house. And then she heard it, a voice, faint, rising from the open grave like breath through broken teeth. You shouldn't have dug. She fled into the house, slamming the door and locking it. Her chest heaved as she pressed her back against the wood, listening. The knocking followed, climbing up the walls, racing across the floorboards, surrounding her like a predator circling its prey. Her lights flickered. Her phone buzzed on the table. Hands shaking, she grabbed it, swiping open the screen. A new recording had appeared in her files, though she hadn't pressed record. When she hit play, the sound of knocking filled the speaker, deafeningly close. Then, layered beneath it, a whisper. Not her voice. Not human. Set us free. The phone slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. Her notepad, still lying on the bed from a night before, flipped open in the sudden draft rushing through the room. Pages fluttered wildly until one lay flat. Across the page, in frantic, jagged handwriting she didn't remember writing, were 3 words. It's too late. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, eyes locked on the wall where it had all begun, waiting for the knocks. But they never came, which meant only one thing. Whatever had been inside the walls wasn't there anymore. The hidden truth. Claire didn't remember falling asleep. One moment she was sitting upright, gripping her phone like a weapon, eyes locked on the wall. The next, she was waking to the sound of wind screaming through the house. The clock read 3:12 a.m. The knocking had returned, but this time it wasn't contained. It throbbed in the floor beneath her feet, rattled the bed frame, crawled through the ceiling beams. Every surface seemed alive, as though the house itself had a heartbeat. Claire staggered to her feet, her phone light slicing through the darkness. "Stop," she cried. "Please, just stop." The response came, not in knocks but in words, a whispering chorus rising from the walls, layered voices, men and women, young and old, each one overlapping into a ghastly symphony. "We told you not to dig." Her skin prickled, while burning her throat. "What are you?" Silence. Then one voice separated itself from the rest, clearer, closer, a woman's. "We were buried together." Claire stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the overturned notepad on the floor. Pages fluttered, each one filled with frantic scrawls she didn't remember writing. Shapes, words, symbols, all of them repeating a single phrase. Not alone. Her gaze snapped toward the window. Outside, the mound she had unearthed was no longer a mound at all. The earth rippled, caved, and shifted, as though something massive moved beneath the soil. The knocking grew louder, louder, until she realized it wasn't just knocking anymore. It was footsteps, coming up from the ground. The front door groaned. Claire spun, flashlight trembling in her grip. The deadbolt turned by itself. Slowly, with agonizing creaks, the door swung open. Fog curled into the house like pale fingers. And then they stepped inside. Figures half-formed, shadows wrapped in scraps of earth-stained cloth. Faces melted into hollows. Their movements were jerky, unnatural, as if bones had forgotten how to move correctly. At their center was a woman in a tattered white dress, her long hair dripping with dirt. Her eyes were pits of blackness, but her voice was unmistakably the one Claire had heard. "We begged you not to dig." Claire's throat tightened. "What do you want from me?" The woman raised her head slowly, her cracked lips forming a grotesque smile. "Company." The figures surged forward. Claire screamed and ran, barreling through the kitchen and fumbling with the back door. Her hands slipped against the lock, the metal cold and slick under her fingers. Behind her, the sound of countless feet dragging across would fill the house. Moans, whispers, claws scraping plaster. The door finally gave way, and she burst outside into the night air, sprinting across the yard. Her bare feet tore on rocks and roots, but adrenaline drove her on. The woods swallowed her. Branches clawed at her arms, shadows twisting with every frantic step. She didn't dare look back, though she felt it behind her, dozens of them, moving as one, filling the night with their pursuit. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed. Still she ran, until the forest opened into a clearing. And there it was, another mound, fresh, larger, waiting. Her body froze, chest heaving. The realization sank in with icy clarity. The first grave wasn't the only one. The entire land was riddled with them. Her voice broke in a sob. "Why me?" The whispers answered, circling her in the clearing like a storm. "You heard us. You opened the door. Now you're one of us." The ground gave way beneath her feet. Cold soil swallowed her ankles, then her knees, pulling her down as if the earth itself had chosen her. She clawed at the ground, screaming, but her hands found no purchase. Faces rose from the soil around her, eyes hollow, mouths gaping. Hands, skeletal and endless, dragged her down. The last thing she saw before the dirt consumed her completely was the woman in white. Leaning over her, whispering with a voice like wind through the grave, "Don't dig unless you're ready to stay." By morning, the house stood quiet again, the yard undisturbed, the mound smoothed over as though no one had touched it in decades. Inside, the walls were still. But if one pressed an ear against the plaster at 12:03 a.m., very carefully, very closely, they might hear a new knocking. One voice, frantic, "Help! Please! Don't dig!